Hi, guys, and welcome to the House Call Vet Cafe podcast. I'm Dr. Eve Harrison. I'm a full-time integrative concierge house call veterinarian in Los Angeles, and I help other vets to build their unique mobile practices on their terms. This podcast is for and by house call and mobile veterinarians, so it is meant to give our community a platform to connect, to share our stories, to lift each other up, and to support each other. Most of us work solo as lone wolves, right? So for me, it's been really powerful to be able to physically hear the voices of my colleagues from all over the world and to get a chance to feel that we truly are part of a community of very real other human beings who get it. While you may be alone in that little bubble of your own vehicle when you're on the road seeing patients, I welcome you to join our community by tuning into our own podcast when you're on your way to your next house call. Whether you're a super experienced house call vet with 30 years of experience, you're a brand new prospective house call vet just looking to get started, or you're house call curious, there will be something for you in this podcast. Each episode, you will hear interviews from other mobile veterinarians just like yourself who are doing unique and innovative things, vets who are sharing their stories, their struggles and challenges, and you can also look forward to hearing valuable information and perspectives from specialists and experts outside of our micro niche. And finally, if becoming a house call veterinarian is something that you've been thinking about exploring, or you're looking for some extra support getting your own mobile practice to feel more profitable and sustainable for you, check out the information in the show notes about my course and our above and beyond supportive private community for members only, plus our monthly group coaching sessions within the House Call Vet Academy. You can also check out my free public Facebook group, which is also called the House Call Vet Cafe, the same name as this podcast, and which is a warm and cozy community for mobile vets to support each other in professional and personal development, in creative entrepreneurship, and in friendship. So thank you guys for spending time with me today. Let's dive into the episode. All right. I am so excited to have with us today as our very first guest on the podcast, Dr. Surell Levine. She is the brains behind the Calm Cozy Cat, and she is an amazing, wacky, and hilarious individual that I knew I wanted to have as a guest on the show very early on. Dr. Surell has a small animal house call practice based out of Hopkinton, Massachusetts. So she's one of us. She works out of her minivan and also has another vet working on her team in a kind of unique situation that we'll hear about later in the episode. Dr. Surell is the inventor of the beloved Calm Cozy Cat wrap that has changed the lives of many of us house call vets and our patients that we'll talk a little bit about more in the show as well. I'm so excited to have you here with us today. Welcome, Dr. Surell. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you. Just got my kids down. It's just another full day. That's where we're all just cramming stuff in, but we're doing it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So first of all, I wanted to start out the episode with a little question. What is your favorite snack to eat in the car while you're on the way to house calls?
I don't want to admit it because I don't like to think of it as a problem, but I know it is. For a while, it was nerds. I did a lot of nerds, like a lot.
Oh,
and
that's
then
hilarious.
I felt like that was really bad. And I definitely didn't want my kids eating nerds. They'd see nerds in my car and they're not good toothbrushers and we can't do nerds. So we actually cut nerds cold turkey. I can't do them. And not that this is better for your teeth, but we do a lot of the string Twizzlers that you peel. And every once in a while I cut veggies and I bring some vegan dip.
Awesome. Do you bring your kids in the car with you to your house calls?
It's so fun. Today I did because my nanny is out of town. So my 2-year-old came with me today, which was fine. Most people received that really well. I definitely never bring my boys. The boys do not settle animals, whereas Josie, who's 2, I think will probably be a vet. They calm when they see her, they calm down. They calm. And actually, I'm totally going to segue into something that we're not even going to talk about, but I had this super, super sick Wheaton Terrier who had PLN and had bladder cancer as well. And the owners were done taking him into the hospital. So I was going there 2-3 times a day. I was giving fluids, I was giving antibiotics, IV. And so the owners were super committed, but only in the home environment. And so I kept having to bring Josie with me. And this dog hadn't eaten in 5 days. And Josie came over and was sitting in my lap while I was giving the fluids. I had a little goldfish for Josie, and Josie offered Marley a little goldfish. And Marley ate 6 goldfish. That dog hadn't eaten in 5 days. And the owner had a full buffet of rotisseries and deli meats and everything out there. And the first visit with Josie, she ate a bunch of goldfish. It was awesome.
Yeah. Your little one, she is meant to be a vet for sure. That must have been amazing.
It was amazing. And the owners, I actually had just met them. They weren't longtime clients for me. And they were just like enamored with the whole process, which, I mean, I could go on forever about that, but just like, I think that that is why people want a house call vet. I think there's a convenience aspect for sure, but there's this getting to know your doctor, this continuity in that way, and this not just medical aspect, but this like, you're human. Yes, that might be that's the right word.
Yeah.
But this human aspect that can totally change it. I was like, you should go to Tufts. This dog needs to be on 24-hour IV fluids and IV antibiotics. And I think that ultimately it was far better for Marley, even though Marley died ultimately after like we did it for 10 days, we treated her. But
yeah,
I think it was still a way better experience than it would have been at Tufts. And that probably just unfortunately equally as successful. The owners could not have been happier. And they gave Josie toys every time we came, and they sent me an incredible card. I don't know how we got totally off topic, except for this was a snack question.
Yeah, we're on topic.
We also always have goldfish in the car for Josie.
That's awesome. I love it. So can you tell me a little bit about how you got started in house call practice? And before we do that, for anyone that is watching this YouTube, I need to acknowledge that I have like a little green screen behind me. And so we have this like weird little gap. So it looks like I'm wearing a giant green hood, which I'm not. So, first time podcaster problems. Anyway, so let me know, what was your story? Like, what got you doing house calls? How did that happen?
I've been with my husband since before vet school. We married after vet school, but he is, he's tough in many ways, but he is very reasonable. It's like, he is just someone that I'm like, if Rick thinks it's reasonable, then it's reasonable, then I should do it because he's just level-minded. And
my guy's that way too.
that is, and it was so like, I just had my second baby. He was 11 months old, and Rick and I went out to lunch for like the first time since having him. And I was like, I don't know, I think I'm thinking about doing house calls. And he was like, yes, you should. And I started that night. I was like, I started my website, and I was like, all I needed was a little, from a reasonable person. I was like, Rick said yes. Okay. I guess I'm doing this. I had been working in downtown Boston. Then I was working in the emergency room. I did an emergency and critical care fellowship, and I couldn't decide where I wanted to be. I ended up surprisingly getting pregnant with my first son. And it sort of made the decision of I wasn't going to keep commuting an hour into the city. I had some sort of medical issue at the time. I had some neurologic changes that can happen sometimes after having a baby, which right now are totally stable and stagnant. But there was a question of whether I was potentially developing MS.
Oh my God.
It was scary. And Rick and I were like, we got to de-stress.
Yeah.
Segue into house call vet, which is not de-stressing. The thought was I'd have a better schedule. I'd have more control over, like, I can get my kids to school and back, which is true. I mean, those things had happened, but there was a long road to get there, I would say. Yeah. But right after Sam was born, I started to do some maternity leaves covering various hospitals just in the area while I was trying to figure out where I was going to land after I was done with the hour commute into the city when Sam was born. And then Rick was like, sure, I think it should be a house call vet. This was, I think, in August. And I saw my first appointment, I think in November is when I was like up and ready to roll. And I probably had about 2 or 3 weeks of overlap with staying in a practice where I was working part-time before I was done.
Wow, that's fast.
It was fast.
Really fast.
And like, I remember that first phone call where it's like, the work phone's ringing. I like slid across the house and I was like, nobody talk. and now I'm like, freaking work phone's ringing. Shit.
Yep. Such a quick transition, isn't it? Right? Yes. My gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. It went very well, very quickly. And I had taken a tech with me from the clinic I had been working at. She was looking to get out, and frankly, they all get paid almost nothing. So even at the beginning, I could pay her so much more than she was making. And she stayed with me until June this year when she had her third kid. So she had already had one when I hired her. And then she had a second during our time during the last few years, which is when I developed Cozy Cat, because she was out on maternity leave and I needed to figure this out without her. And because our hours were so wishy-washy, I couldn't really hire someone. She was able to do the wishy-washy hours with me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think having 3 kids is a reason to take more time for herself. But at the same time, what a blessing that it sort of was the trigger that caused you to kind of start developing the Calm Cozy Cat. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how that came. Tell me the story
Well,
of
I was panicked. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, so Keegan's going on maternity leave. It's December. I don't feel totally comfortable doing stuff alone. Like Keegan had been a tech for 15 years, like she was straight out of high school teching. And I also felt like really comfortable in terms of having security of like someone else with me, someone who could do backup blood draws if I wasn't getting it. I knew she was good at it. I knew that she could hold a cat and I was never going to get hurt with her, which is not always easy to find in having a tech.
Totally.
And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I hired this kid. It wasn't a kid, whatever. He's in his mid-20s, which to me felt like a kid. And he had zero rapport with the animals. And he worked at the same clinic I'd worked at before, and everybody loved him. And he just like had nothing with the animals and nothing with the owners. After a few weeks, I was sort of like, this isn't working. I got to figure something else out. And that's when I was like, I had a baby of my own, I was still like swaddling my baby to go to sleep. And I was like, will this work for cats? And I've noticed a lot of the stuff that Temple Grandin has always been saying for autistic kids, just being like snuggled in, and how she really changed how McDonald's did their culling of the cows, of how they went into a chute that really snuggled them in so they were less stressed. And I was like, there's totally something there. Is it there for cats? I don't know, because cats are very odd, right?
Yeah.
But I pulled out a sewing machine, which my mother-in-law gave me many years ago. It's been in the closet forever. And I, YouTubed how to thread it. And it was like a mess. Okay. It was just a mess. Thread everywhere. I mean, it doesn't sound messy, but it was messy.
It reminds me of my quilter friends. There's like fabric everywhere. And these
it's just like, I didn't even, I'm like, how do you like make a bobbin work? What is a bobbin? But anyways,
what is a bobbin?
It's part of the damn sewing machine. You need, okay. But the first one was super ugly, but I started using it. And the first patient I used it on was named Simon, who actually just bit my other doctor a few weeks ago while I was gone on Thanksgiving, because he's a ferocious, he hadn't been to the vet in many years. And the owner had him in the bathroom. And I walked into the bathroom and he was clinging to the curtains, hissing at me, staring at me, like totally on the side of the wall on curtains. And I had my falcon gloves on, and I grabbed him off and I got him into the Cozy Cat. And I watched that damn cat's eyes go down. And I listened to his heart and it was like 170. And I was like, he's like responding to this. I'm able to touch him. He hadn't had an exam done ever. Okay. He was like, he's now 7. And he was 4. And I got a full exam done. I looked in his mouth. I gave him vaccines and I drew blood alone. I had no one with me. And I was like, this thing is going to work.
Incredible.
But I was petrified of it because who am I to make something? And then, am I really going to spend time trying to make this happen? And all the steps that you have to do to make it happen, and where do you even start? And so I Googled pattern maker, and I found somewhere in Massachusetts, the Good People Clothing Company or something like that. And I was like, that sounds good. It's like, who doesn't want good people? Who were like the least responsive people. And for a while I was leaving messages. I'm like, are you guys even in business anymore? I don't even know. No one called me back. But I went in, sat down with them. No one understands what we're doing, right? I'm like, why it has to be this material and why things have to be this size. But they made a pattern for me. And then I was like, I think I'm going to do this. And I was a lawyer. And he was like, well, it's going to be, probably at least $20,000 for your patent if we can make one. And then you have to write up all the stuff this does, because he doesn't know what it does. And it was just endless amounts of work after. And I was like, am I doing this? Am I doing this?
Yeah.
But the thing is, my practice was successful enough to finance all I needed to do with Cozy Cat. So it didn't feel like the biggest risk ever, especially as my husband's like, what are you doing? It's going to be a $20,000 patent. And you know what? We are so in beyond 20,000 for this patent.
Yeah. I know it.
But it's never been something that we've felt, because my practice makes enough money and we don't really see this happening.
Incredible.
And then I was able to like make like decisions of what's important to me. Well, I want it to be women run businesses, and I want it to be fair trade work. And I want to find the zipper person. I don't want to be a douchebag. I want to find like some woman who's like ready to talk to me. So I have Betty at YKK who's like
ready to be the zipper person. That's awesome.
I know, because you know what? I talked to Roy, and Roy was an a-hole.
Yeah, we don't need Roy.
But Betty was totally into it. And so I talked to this woman in LA who has her own manufacturing business, and she was so excited about it. And like we chatted about our kids, and you're like, this is just felt so nice. And like, then we made one. And then I put it on Facebook, on DVM Moms, and on what's called that. And people were like, maybe I'll try it. Because as I was like posting a million videos and torturing our own cat, and my husband's like, why are you doing it to our cat? I'm like, well, they live here, so we have to use it. And then I'm like, we need to get more videos with our cat, because my cat at the time was ferocious. Awesome. And like you had to completely knock him out to do anything if you were taking him to the vet.
Yeah.
So I was constantly trying to use him. And
you're surrounded by ferocious cats. It's a good thing.
I feel like it's like what I do.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And it was like a matter of time before you came up with the Calm Cozy, right? It was just like meant to be.
Yeah. I think I had enough fodder to be like, this cannot be the way we work. I remember using the backpack material. It's not.
Yeah. I don't know what backpack material. I know you said denim.
I don't know. The cat bags that were like just shitty cat bags that like from like 20 years ago. And there was like no comfort to them. And like, you would never want an owner to see that you put the cat in it. Right. And I think one of the biggest things is I started to use my own one, the one that like was the prototype, is how much owners were like, oh my God, it's so cute. It's so cute. And they went mesmerized for it. And everyone's like, let me take a picture. And oh my God, I've never seen my cat actually do that. And my cat's sitting still for it. And like, oh, let me hold him in it because look at how cute he is in it. And I was like, as a house call practitioner, the number one thing is that the owner feels like their animal's having a decent experience. Oh yeah. You know, and they've never seen what happens in the back with blood draws. Like how many blood draws of cats did you do in front of owners in the room? You know, like they never saw that we had to hold them down that way or to get urine or whatever. And they're screaming or they're fighting it. You never have to scruff them when they're in a cozy cat, right? Like, it's so damn easy. Once they're in, the owners just loved it. And every single time, still, every time I pull it out, they're like, oh my God, it's the cutest thing. It is. And for a while I'd use an e-collar, like a cute flower e-collar. And it like, even then people were like, oh, it's too much to take, you know, and you're like, it is, it's adorable. It's adorable.
It really is. I have so many pictures of my patients in the Calm Cozy, and you know, like, can I just take a picture of that real quick? Yes, of course, please do.
I love it, and that's what they love. That's why they've hired me. Is like it's a good experience for your cat, but also like the owners are loving it, and like that's a combination that you can't beat.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more, that, you know, part of the house call experience is reducing stress for everyone involved. And the Calm Cozy cat is one of the major tools that I use in my house call practice every day to make sure that everyone's happy and
safe. I mean, all the time, like, I don't even wait for them to act up. They instantly go in. Everybody goes in it, because once they've acted up, it's difficult and you've ruined the whole experience for everyone. Right. Yeah. I never prepped people to put the cat in the bathroom. Now every cat has to go into a bathroom. Nice. And so I come into houses and they'd be like, oh, the cat's over there by the couch. And you start to walk toward it and the cat runs. Right. And then we're like running up the stairs after it. And then they're like having a shitty experience because they're like, do you even know what you're doing? I'm like, well, I'm a stranger and your cat's not like going to just sit there while I walk over to it.
Totally.
And now it's like, you're in the bathroom, I put you in the cozy cat, I come out, everybody loves it, and everyone's less stressed.
That's so kick-ass. And can you walk me through your top 3 tips on how you do solo blood draws for our listeners?
So a couple things. I think one of the biggest problems that people run into is when you put the cat in, you need to have those legs not out in front of them, but cozied up. I describe it like a Bambi, like they have to be snuggled down. And that way, first of all, when you open up those flaps to trim their nails, their feet are essentially right there instead of like up here. And sometimes They'll try and like get their head back in the hole if their legs aren't folded down appropriately. But once their legs are folded down, first of all, it allows so much more access to their jugular. I always clip because it is not worth not clipping the fur. If I'm still nervous, which I mean, occasionally there's a cat that I'm like, this thing's still dicey. Sure. Either I will put an e-collar on, like that just totally makes everyone safe. And even then I can have an owner. If I don't have a big enough hand for that head, I can have an owner hold the head up. But it's just all positioning for me. Do I have the cat in with its legs appropriately? And is that wrap tight enough? The whole point of using the fleece is that there is a give to it. I tried every fabric out there. I know people hate fleece, but there's a smidge of give and it makes it so I don't have to ever worry, did I get it too tight? Can they breathe?
Yeah.
And I want them so snugged in that they get calmer. If you give them a little room, they do want to fight against it. So if you have them so snugged in, it's so much easier to get that vein. The other thing is though, if I'm a little too worried about their head or they're like, I really can't hold it still long enough, I will totally pull a leg out the front. And so if they're on their side, if I'm the cat, and I've got this leg out, I always pull it down away from their body because then I can get this cephalic, no problem. Nice. And I am in nowhere close to that mouth. And that's the only part that's scary at that point. And they're totally swaddled in. So if I can clip this cephalic and use a butterfly, I will always get that if I'm worried about getting too close to the jugular or those little stout necks where I just can't expose enough jugular.
Yeah, that's a great tip. It's pushing the arm down away from you.
Yeah, not just out if you put them back. Sometimes I've had some other people tell me they'll have an owner hold the cat up so they pull the leg down and it's not necessarily pulled backward, but it's pulled straight down like in a standing position till the head can't get to it. There's so much I do, but just out of having used it a million times. So just practice. You know, when I'm doing cystos, I have the cat on the floor with my heel in its back so I can stabilize its back, you know, but it's like, this is all what I think keeps us young and limber. My other vet's like, this is how we're going to go out early. We can't stay this flexible. And my knees hurt. I'm like, this is what's going to keep us flexible.
Yeah, this is our yoga, like house call vet yoga. That's what's going to keep us young. So that brings me to my next point. You work in a really interesting way with your associate. And I have, other than myself, actually, for a hot minute, I have not heard of anyone else doing anything like this. And it sounds from the way you've described it that it's really working well.
Life-saving.
I would love to hear what it is that you're doing and how it's been different or better. And if you recommend it for other folks to try something like this.
Yeah. So I think it takes two unique situations. One is I'm happy to be the owner and do the rest of the stuff in the background. And Shelly is happy to be the part-timer. She's not looking to go up the scale some way. She doesn't want more responsibility. She's like, I have 3 kids. I want to work 3 days a week. That's it. And because we have those 2 different roles, it works for us. She's not looking to take on more.
So you guys, like, just to back up a little bit. So what you guys do is you go to every appointment,
every call together,
and you alternate who. So why don't you explain exactly what the
So we used to be, we both had Keegan, our one nurse, and I worked the beginning of the week and she worked the second half of the week with Keegan. And basically what happened is we both felt totally frazzled. So many things were falling through the cracks. There was just so much to keep track of. And how much of it was Keegan getting done or how much was half done, and you never really knew. And basically at the end of the day, you had to go back through and check everything. Even if it had been done, there was so much micromanaging and it was an all day, all night experience, right? Like once my kids would go down, I'd be like, I got to go finish up my charts, or I would be days or weeks behind on my charts because I just can't get to them. And Shelly felt the same way. And Shelly was getting really miserable. And I knew I was about to lose Shelly. And I knew she had hated being in practice too, like in the clinic practice. And that's sort of how I got her over to being a house call vet. And we both had 3 kids and was trying to figure out if maybe she was going to become like a bio teacher. She was just like, I'm out. This is no way to live. Right.
Can definitely get to that level when you're either running a business or you're wrapped up in at the very like close level to the business running aspect of
I
things.
think so. I think it was just us. There's no other outlet, and now Shelly and I think we're extremely compatible and very good friends, but we would have ups and downs because I could see how stressed she would get when she had a busy schedule. And they were extremely inefficient together, and they'd be coming home late and they'd be frazzled and I'd feel terrible. And I'm like, is it because we booked too many appointments for her? Was it reasonable? Was it not reasonable? And was I getting resentful of why can't you do this schedule? And like, you're only working 2 to 3 days a week. And then Keegan decided she wanted to go on a massive maternity leave. She was due in August and she was like, I'm stopping in June and I want 8 months. And I thought at that point I was losing Shelly too. And we had talked about this isn't working. I was like, Shelly, I love you and you're miserable. And maybe I'm going to go at it alone. Maybe I'm going to close the practice. Maybe it's just like not worth it. And I was miserable. Then ultimately said to Shelly, after basically saying, you're done, like, we're done with this. I went over to her house and we were both teary-eyed and I was like, we're not doing this. You're miserable and we're not going to continue this. And I have to tell you to go find something else. And she was like, well, I'm not going to leave you without no one while Keegan's leaving. And maybe let's just give it a month or something while you try and figure out who can come join you. Because I was interviewing some other nurses and we hired this other nurse that was very bad. She'd been a nurse for 30 years and this was not right. I fired her within a few weeks. And it's like, we got to do this together, Shelly. And I gave her a good raise, actually. And it's like, we got to power through. We'll regroup at the end of the summer and decide if this is going to work or not. So we started seeing every appointment together. We work Monday, Thursday, Friday from 9 to 5. And I would see anything that had to be seen on Tuesdays and Wednesdays alone. But usually I could get away with pushing it off to another day. I hired a local mom to just sit in the office and do emails and scheduling and like refill meds to me. And she'd always text me pictures of the med next to the bottle, next to the script. And we would do it that way.
Great.
And it started to become fun. It was fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we were like laughing hard and we were stopping for our Twizzlers and we were stopping for our Diet Cokes. And we like never drink Diet Coke, but when we're together, we drink Diet Coke. And we were laughing hard. And I felt like I was going to work with like my best friend. And so many of the stressors were gone. Like, you had another responsible party who wasn't going home until their job was done. You had someone to bounce things off of, and owners loved it. And they'd be like, you've got a process going. It was intoxicating. We were having our work done by the time we were home. It was done. And like, she'd be doing the front half of the dog, I'd be doing the back half. Or if the owner was talking to her, I could be getting the physical exam done. And the efficiency level just went through the roof. And she drives always. I sit with my laptop and I type up charts and invoices as soon as we're back in the car between appointments. And 9 times out of 10, all of them are done by the time we get home. The only thing we have to do is our cytologies and print out our lab work. The most important thing that in preparation of talking with you that I learned is I compared the first half of the year with Keegan to the second half of the year with just me and Shelly. And our average monthly gross income was $15,000 more per month.
Oh my God. Per month.
Per month.
Oh,
and then I was like, well, maybe that's not fair because January and February are a little bit slower. So then I compared the last 5 months with the last 5 months of last year. So we're in the same time frame, and it was $13,000 more.
Okay.
Per month.
Okay.
So I'm not paying Keegan, who is a very well-paid tech.
Right.
Shelly's not working more days.
Great.
So she's like, I gave her a raise, but not a $13,000 per month raise.
Right.
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 My quality of life went through the roof. Like, I'm done with work when I come home.
Incredible.
Like, we don't start until my kids are on the bus, and same with Shelly. She rolls in at 5 to 9 and we try to get to our first appointment by 9:10. She knows when she says we need to refill something that I'm writing it down. We know we're doing it because we have the same ideas of what's important and the same motivation to do well with it. I just think it was life-saving for both of us. Shelly was absolutely miserable, and I was thinking of shutting down the practice.
Yeah.
And a lot of vets, or maybe I should just speak for myself, I think a lot of us have a little bit of, well, I think everyone has, of like, there's a phrase for it, where you feel like a fraud. There's a
imposter syndrome.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you have another vet with you, right there in front of an owner with you, and you're like, I think that we should really think about starting HP because of A, B, and C. And I feel like owners are like, I don't want to switch diets. And then you've got like Shelly being like, yes. And the owners are like, it's so much more compelling.
That's
I
incredible.
don't know. There's something totally different when they're like, both these vets are seeing that. We were looking at some weird, I've never seen a Nevi before. Never even heard the word. Okay. But we went to this vet, and the Nevi. Nevi.
Oh, okay.
Nevi.
Okay.
So we went to this dog yesterday that had this weird lesion on its nose that we're like, is it a weird papilloma? I don't know what it is. And I was like, I've never seen this. And she was like, I've never seen this. And it felt, it feels great. I mean, the owners don't love that. But there's also like, this is odd. It's not just you got a vet who doesn't know what the hell she's doing.
Right.
Which maybe they weren't thinking, but I'm thinking it. I'm like, should I have seen this before? I've never seen this before. And then we posted it on Facebook, and a dermatologist was like, that looks like a Nevi, and like, you could buy them, whatever. Like, that's not the part of the story that's important, but it's having someone there all the time.
It's incredible.
That you're like, I trust this person. She trusts me, and we're in it together. And we're in the same role of responsibility that your nurse was not. You know, it's so good for our souls and so good for the medicine because you have two capable, knowledgeable people on it. And then it turns out that it's so good for the finances. Like, it's just a nice reinforcement of not only is life a lot better. I thought I was going to take a massive hit. My husband's like, I can't believe you have two vets working together. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Right. And he's reasonable. Right. So,
this your husband said that?
Yeah. I mean, I was just like, maybe he's right. But like, at this point, I'm about to close the practice. So who cares? Maybe we still stay afloat. And now it's so fun because like, she just videos while I do cats. Right. Like she's like, I have the easiest job ever. I love when someone's like, my cat's feisty. I'm like, bring it. I am ready for a feisty cat. Shelly's on video.
Videos, your solo blood draws and everything.
That's right. She's like, every once in a while, she's like, do you want help? I'm like, we got to move along. We have so much going on today. We got to just put the camera down. But it became a ton of fun. And I've never felt that way about practice. And it became much more of a money maker. I hate to use that phrase, but it's so doable. And she got a good raise, and she's very happy with her life now.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome and so inspiring. And honestly, it's a testament to the fact that, work smarter, not harder, and everything will fall into place. Like, we always think we have to martyr ourselves and like work ourselves to the bone. And actually, you just need to hack the system. You need to figure out your hack. And
the hacks I felt like I cracked the code. I think I've said that to you before. It's a phrase that I think my sister said when I was like, I think this might be awesome. It's like, you cracked the code. It's a code that no one thought to crack in that way.
Right. And you're right, you have to have the right person with you for it to work. And you have that. Like, damn, I'm jealous.
I think that there's a fair amount of vets who want to be the part-time vet, especially as in our field right now, where we're talking to other house call practitioners who are likely solo and working by themselves to find someone who is now looking to transition to just being part-time, but have had enough experience. You can't be like a new grad. I think that combination exists right now. If you're already doing what we're doing, then there's likely a vet who's like, I just want to be a few days a week and not have a ton more responsibility. Like, Shelly never takes the phone home, ever. She did her Thanksgiving because I was out of town and she got bitten, and that all felt terrible.
Oh, okay. No.
I do feel very responsible for her happiness, which is tricky. But that's, I think, more of a me thing and not necessarily the role I'm in. I think maybe a lot of veterinarians feel that way. Just we're people who are like, want to make sure others are okay.
And you're also like one of the most ethical people that I know. Like, you're a vet, which is like inherently hyper responsible. And then you got the Surell hyper responsibility, hyper ethical. Yes. So like, I can imagine how that would be. I feel that way a little bit about my vet tech, like that I'm responsible for her happiness. But I can see that your setup is like so unique and you guys are so intertwined and working every day together. So I can totally understand that. But thank you so much for sharing that
Yeah.
incredibly unique little hack that you figured out. And I'm so glad that transition happened for you and that you were able to embrace innovation and something that is new and different and take that risk. And sometimes like we have to hit rock bottom to be able to get
Just about to
like
say
it's
that.
kind of like the calm cozy, like you were in a desperate situation, you had to figure your way out, and that's so the house call and mobile vet way, I think
Yeah.
that's how a lot of us got where we are. So thank you so much for sharing both of those really inspiring stories and for your gifts to our community and our industry with the calm cozy. It's just
Thank you.
I can't even like I bought like 500 of them already, y'all.
I feel this. I mean, I put a totally nut job of like a little kitten in the other day to get its pre-op blood work because it was adopted with a girl and it's boy and it made no sense. But anyways, I was like, there is no way we're going to get blood on this cat. Like it was just like a jumping jelly bean. And I mean, daily, I guess I made it. And that's exciting in many ways. Okay? But it's still stunning to me. And like, did we just get blood on this kitten? Like,
Yeah,
there
you
was
did.
no way that was going to happen if we didn't have it in the kitten wrap. It's just zero chance.
Right. Right.
Like,
That was like a success on so many levels. The fact that you invented that thing to begin with, and then that it worked, and then that you got the blood on the jumping jelly bean kid.
yeah.
So like props. So many props.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just like shocked every day. I'm like, well, that went well.
I'm proud to know you. I seriously am. And so thank you for everything. And I wanted to close our episode today just by asking you one other food related question. Since we are in the House Call Vet Cafe podcast, can you tell me what is your favorite coffee or tea, or maybe it's another beverage? I know
Okay,
you're
so we live our whole life going between Starbucks and then another coffee shop in town. And then we go to like the gas station for our Diet Coke. We have our schedule throughout the day. Every morning starts with our Starbucks run. I'm almost embarrassed to say it because it's just like too much. Is a green tea latte with oat milk.
That sounds delicious. I would
It's just
that. I would
like, I'll take a dark brew straight up. I'm like, I will take just a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
How many coffee beverages do you have a day?
Oh, you should see our freaking
Like
car at the end of the day. There are so many cups between the Diet Coke and the seltzer and there's sometimes seltzer. It's usually nothing
hydrated.
Usually we try to avoid hydration. We just like tea constantly from our caffeine at people's houses. It's very awkward. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending this time with me today. It's been amazing chatting with you. Thank you for all you do for inventing such an awesome thing for all of us. And for folks who are inside the House Call Vet Academy, you do have access to a special discount code from Dr. Bell to get your Calm Cozy cat if you want one. So thanks again. And I look forward to chatting with you again, hopefully on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the House Call Vet Cafe. If you enjoyed this episode, then hit the subscribe or follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never have to miss an episode. This podcast is made specifically for you, so don't be shy if you'd like to reach out and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as the House Call Vet Academy, where I also share more valuable content. If you're interested in learning more about consulting for House Call Vets or the House Call Vet Academy online course and community, please click on the link in the show notes. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I can't wait for you to join us for our next episode of the House Call Vet Cafe.